My name is Kayla, 29 years old, and I never thought I'd be the one to flip the table on my family's smug dinner. For years, they painted me as the failure scraping by with real estate gigs driving a beat-up Honda while they flashed their shiny lives. Then came the night my mom sneered across the plates. "You're too stupid to live here, get out." My sister chimed in. Nose wrinkled smells like poverty. I stood glass steady and dropped one line that froze them cold, then let this poor person take back their $100,000. Before I get to my story, I want to know what time and what city you are listening in. I'm happy to know how far my story goes. 3 hours earlier, a text from Mom hit my phone sharp, no warmth demanding dinner at that Capitol Hill spot, 7:30. We hadn't talked in months, her last jab still burning. I could have skipped it, but something pulled me. Drove through Seattle rain, pulled up in my Honda, walked into their trap on my terms, plain blouse, no show. They sat Mom at the head siblings smirking. She checked her watch. Still late, still useless. But that morning I'd mapped it all out in the quiet of my home office, rain tapping the window like impatient fingers. The laptop screen glowed with the foreclosure filing for the Brooks family home in Ballard. Mom's pride, the 4-bedroom they'd closed on last year with my silent backing. $100,000 down payment wired clean from my first big flip profits, no questions asked when she called it a family favor. Now the docs stared back, stamped with default notices after months of skipped interest payments she blamed on tight markets. I scrolled through the liens, the equity she'd burned on Courtney's new SUV and Jordan's law school loans. My thumb hovered over the print button. The phone vibrated. Garrett Hale, my real estate attorney, the guy who'd handled the paperwork on that deal, and half a dozen others without a whisper to anyone outside our circle. "Kayla, you sure about pushing this? They don't even know you're the lender of record." His voice carried that steady Seattle edge, the kind that came from closing deals in coffee shops during endless drizzles. "Not pushing," I said, leaning back in the chair that overlooked the gray sound. "Just collecting what's mine. Give them tonight one last shot to own up before the notice hits." He paused, then chuckled low. "Fair play. I'll have the demand letter queued in the app. Hit send when you're ready, and it's legally binding by morning. Eviction clock starts at 30 days WA rules." We wrapped it quick logistics on the wire transfer, reversal tax implications if they fought it. No drama on his end. Garrett knew the score from day one, back when I funneled the cash through his firm to keep my name off the mortgage. I closed the call and stood crossing to the closet where the old clothes hung like relics. Pulled out the faded blouse from college, the one that screamed, "struggling sibling," paired it with jeans that had seen better days. The Honda keys waited on the dresser. My daily driver, reliable in city traffic, even if the glove box hid titles to something faster tucked away in a garage across town. It was all theater, this downplay. Mom had drilled it into me young that showy meant weak, but tonight I'd use her own script against her. 6 years back, I'd tested the waters with my first house hack, a rundown duplex in Fremont, bought sight unseen with savings from odd jobs, and a loan Mom co-signed just to shut me up. "Real estate, that's for suits like your sister, not dreamers." She'd snapped over coffee, her laugh sharp as the steam rising from her mug. Beatrice Brooks, queen of the open house circuit after Dad bailed, always quick to pivot my wins into flukes. That duplex flipped it in 8 months for triple-seated, the next deal, and the next quiet builds in a market that rewarded the patient. She'd dismissed every update as luck, never asking how the numbers stacked. Tonight, those stacks would topple her tower. By 6:30, I locked up and slid into the Honda engine, humming steady against the downpour. The wipers cut arcs through the water, sheeting the windshield as I merged onto I-5 Capitol Hill lights, smudging in the haze ahead. 7 o'clock sharp, I'd timed it to roll in just behind the reservation, letting the evening unfold on their terms first. The clock above the bar ticked to 7:20 as Kayla settled into the stiff chair at the far end of the table, her family's eyes already sharpening for the kill. Mom leaned forward, her gold watch catching the light from the pendant lamps. 29 years old and still dragging in late like some dead-end freelancer, she said, voice loud enough to turn heads at the next booth. Her sister perched to Mom's left swirled her Pinot Noir and smirked. What barely scraped enough for gas this week? The words landed like darts, each one a calculated jab at Kayla's patched-together jeans and faded blouse. Her brother, sitting opposite, shifted in his seat. His tie loosened just enough to signal discomfort, but not enough to intervene. Kayla kept her face blank, hands folded on the table, letting them dig their own hole. She'd planned this, let them spill every ounce of venom before she flipped the script. The server, a wiry guy with a sharp jaw, approached with a tray of waters. He set hers down with a deliberate nod, eyes flicking to hers in silent recognition. She knew him, Ronan Hale, one of the staff she'd kept on payroll when she'd bailed out this place 2 years back after a bad lease deal nearly tanked it. His glance said he knew the game she was playing tonight. Mom didn't notice, too busy waving at the menu. Look at this, real Italian. Not the takeout slop you probably live on. She flipped it open, no prices listed, a flex of status. Courtney's killing it in marketing now, $80,000 a year, corner office by 35. And Jordan, youngest associate at his firm, already handling big environmental cases. She paused, eyes narrowing at Kayla. And you still chasing those little real estate flips? What's it called, freelancing? No wonder you're stuck with that Honda. Courtney leaned in, her diamond studs glinting. Bet you're still splitting rent with roommates in some Fremont dive. A couple at the next table glanced over, catching the edge in her tone. Jordan cleared his throat, muttering something about the appetizers, but didn't meet Kayla's gaze. She let the silence stretch, her pulse steady, watching Mom's smirk widen as she sipped her wine. Still freelancing, Kayla said, voice flat, baiting them. Must be tough, Mom shot back, scraping by while we're out here living. The table laughed, a brittle sound that carried to the bar. Ronan returned with a basket of focaccia, placing it near Kayla, with another subtle nod, his fingers brushing the edge of her glass. She caught it, confirmation he'd seen her name on the ownership papers, the ones that tied her to 55% of this restaurant's deed. The chatter around them dipped, forks clinking softer as nearby diners sensed the tension. Kayla stayed quiet, her eyes scanning the table, Mom's smug tilt, Courtney's curled lip, Jordan's fidgeting hands. She needed them to keep going, to lay every card out before she played hers. The server's nod had been the first crack in their facade, a signal the night was about to shift. The server swept in with plates of grilled salmon and risotto at 8 sharp, the steam curling up under the dim glow of the restaurant's pendant lamps. Kayla speared a bite of fish, her movements slow, deliberate, then leaned forward with a question she'd been holding like a loaded card. So, Mom, how's the new house treating you? Her voice was casual, almost sweet, but her eyes locked on like a hawk. Beatrice set her fork down, lips curling into a smug arc. Oh, it's a dream. 4 bedrooms, Ballard address, $400,000 locked in last spring. Took a $100,000 down payment to seal it. No thanks to your little side hustles. The jab landed sharp and public, drawing a chuckle from the couple at the next table. Courtney jumped in her wine glass, tilting as she spoke. Yeah, Kayla, you'd never scrape together enough for a mortgage like that. Stick to your rentals. Her tone dripped with pity, the kind that begged for applause. Jordan shifted in his chair, his fingers tapping the edge of his plate, eyes darting to Kayla, then back to his food. He sensed something off but stayed quiet, his lawyer instincts not sharp enough to call the bluff. Really, Kayla said, her smile thin, almost dangerous. That's a big loan to swing. She let the words hang, baiting the trap wider. Beatrice laughed, a brittle sound that carried across the room. Big, it's nothing for us. We know how to play the game, unlike some people who think flipping condos is a career. The table beside them went quiet, forks pausing as the tension bled outward. A woman in her 50s, hair pulled into a sleek bun, passed by on her way to the bar. She caught Kayla's eye and offered a quick nod, the kind reserved for someone who'd changed lives. Kayla knew her Evelyn Tate, the neighbor whose daughter got a full ride to art school last year, courtesy of Kayla's scholarship fund. Evelyn's glance held weight, a silent salute to the woman who'd bankrolled it without fanfare. Beatrice missed it too, busy slicing her salmon with precision, her smirk unshaken. "You must be proud," Kayla said, voice still, even nudging the conversation deeper into the trap. "A house like that screams success." Courtney snorted, her earrings flashing. "Success you wouldn't know, Kayla. Bet you're still dodging landlords." Jordan coughed, mumbling about the risotto, but his hands stayed busy folding his napkin into tight squares. The air at the table thickened, every word a step closer to the edge. Beatrice raised her glass, her eyes glinting with triumph. "To living well, something you learn when you stop chasing pipe dreams." The toast was a blade aimed straight at Kayla, who sipped her water and let the moment simmer. Evelyn lingered near the bar, her gaze flicking back, sensing the storm about to break. The dessert cart rolled up at 8:30, laden with tiramisu and panna cotta, catching every eye in the restaurant. Ronan set a single plate before Kayla, a chocolate tart dusted with cocoa not on the menu. "From the chef your usual," he said, voice low but clear enough for the table to catch. Beatrice raised an eyebrow, her fork pausing midair. "What, you know the kitchen staff now? Some freelancer perk?" Her tone was sharp, slicing through the hum of nearby chatter. Courtney smirked, swirling her wine. "Probably begged for scraps." Jordan's eyes flicked to Kayla, sensing a shift, but staying silent, his fingers gripping his napkin. Before Kayla could respond, a man in a crisp navy suit strode through the dining room, his silver hair catching the light. Garrett Hale, the real estate attorney who'd brokered her deals for years, moved with the confidence of someone who owned the room or knew who did. He ignored a waving couple at another table, heading straight for Kayla. "Boss," he said, voice warm, as he wrapped her in a quick, firm hug. "Didn't know you'd grace us tonight." The word hit like a thunderclap. Boss Beatrice's wine glass trembled, nearly spilling. Courtney's mouth fell open, her earrings still. Jordan leaned forward, eyes wide. Garrett pulled a chair from a nearby table, settling in without asking. "Your daughter loaned us $100,000 last year when our Ballard project was drowning in bad debt," he said, looking at Beatrice. "She restructured the leases, cut costs, flipped the numbers, saved our necks. Now she owns 55% of the whole deal, worth about $2.5 million. The restaurant's buzz faded, diners craning to listen. Beatrice's face drained of color, her hand clutching the table's edge. "That's impossible," she stammered. Courtney blinked, speechless, her wine forgotten. Garrett chuckled, unfazed. "Impossible? She's been outpacing half the brokers in Seattle." A woman approached Evelyn Tate, the neighbor from earlier. "Kayla, I didn't want to interrupt, but thank you again for the scholarship. My daughter's at art school because of you." Her voice carried, drawing more eyes. Another figure stepped forward, a man in his 40s with a tech CEO's polish, Victor Lang, whose startup Kayla had bailed out last spring. "Your investment kept my company afloat," he said, nodding to her. "Turned our red books black in 6 months." Beatrice's fork clattered to her plate. Courtney stared, her jaw still slack. Jordan's voice broke the silence, barely a whisper. "You did all this?" Kayla met his gaze, her expression calm but unyielding. "You never asked what I was building." The room felt smaller, the air heavy with the weight of truths unspoken for years. The air at the table turned brittle as Kayla leaned forward, her water glass untouched, eyes locked on her family at 9 sharp. "I'm pulling the plug on that $100,000 I loaned for your house," she said, voice cold as steel, each word slicing through the restaurant's fading chatter. "It's 100% of your mortgage's down payment. Time to collect." Beatrice's face went ashen, her wine glass hitting the table with a clink that echoed. "That's not possible." She stammered, her usual swagger gone. Courtney's jaw tightened, her fingers digging into the tablecloth. "You, the Honda driver. You don't have that kind of cash." Jordan's eyes darted to Kayla, his voice a hoarse whisper. "You're the lender." Kayla didn't flinch, her gaze steady. "You never bothered to check the paperwork, did you?" She pulled out her phone, opened the app Garrett had prepped that morning, and tapped the screen. The foreclosure demand letter loaded, her signature swiping across it in seconds. "Sent," she said, voice flat. 30 days, Washington law eviction notice starts now. The table froze, forks stilled at nearby booths, diners openly staring. Beatrice shook her head, her voice rising. "This is a lie." "You're bluffing," Courtney chimed in, desperate. "You're just some freelancer scraping by." Before Kayla could respond, her phone buzzed, a video call from her cousin, a lean guy in his late 20s, who'd been in her corner since the start. "Kayla, tell me you finally dropped the bomb," he said, his face filling the screen. She turned it to the table. "Go ahead, Spencer Quill. She's worth $2.5 million. Spencer said, his voice clear, cutting through the room. "Flipped houses, bankrolled startups, funded scholarships while you all laughed at her. That loan, she could have called it in months ago." Beatrice's hand shook, spilling wine across her plate. Courtney's face flushed, her career's shine suddenly dim. Jordan looked down, muttering, "I should have asked what you were doing." Kayla set the phone down, her signature already filed through Garrett's app, locking the foreclosure in motion. The dominoes fell fast. Beatrice's real estate reputation, built on borrowed cash, would crumble when the default hit public records. Courtney's marketing job, tied to Mom's network, would take a hit as clients distanced themselves. Jordan, the least cruel, might scrape by, forced to stand on his own. In 30 seconds, their world shifted. Kayla stood her chair, scraping softly, the sound louder than any shout. "You thought I was nothing," she said, eyes on Beatrice. "Now you've got nothing to stand on." The restaurant watched, breathless, as the weight of her words sank in. Kayla stood at 9:30, her chair barely scraping the floor, her voice steady as she faced the shattered table. "We're done," she said, eyes locked on Beatrice. "No more games." Beatrice lurched forward, her wine-stained napkin crumpling in her fist. "Family doesn't walk away," she snapped, voice cracking loud enough to hush nearby tables. Courtney's face twisted, her earrings catching the light as she leaned in. "You can't just ditch us." Jordan stayed seated, his hands folded, eyes fixed on the table like he was piecing together a lost case. Kayla's gaze didn't waver. "Family doesn't evict their own for sport," she said, each word a quiet blade. "You did that to yourselves." She turned, striding through the restaurant diners, parting like a silent honor guard. Outside, the Seattle rain fell in sheets, soaking Beatrice, Courtney, and Jordan as they stumbled after her to the curb. The valet pulled up, her Audi sleek midnight black, a birthday gift she'd bought herself last year. She took the keys, her movements calm, final. Beatrice called out, "Kayla, wait," but the plea drowned in the downpour. 2 months later, the foreclosure hit. Beatrice moved into a budget motel off Aurora Avenue, her real estate contacts gone quiet, her reputation sunk by public default records. Courtney's marketing gigs dried up, clients didn't trust a name tied to financial ruin. Jordan, scraping by, took a job at a smaller firm, finally standing on his own, but cut off from the family's old network. Kayla settled into her penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, papers spread for a new housing project, affordable units for artists, her next move. Her phone buzzed, Jordan's voicemail. "Kayla, I'm sorry, I should have seen you, not their lies." She listened, then deleted it, no reply. "Toxic ties only break you if you let them hold. In America, one bad loan can strip everything: house, status, pride. I cut loose, built my own empire from the ground up. Don't wait for blind eyes to see your worth. Build anyway."